What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the Octopath Traveler, and this time we're going to be looking at all the characters of the roster and my own personal recommended builds for each of them. The reason why I want to do this instead of making separate videos for each character is because I want to be very short, to the point, and we're gonna just leave out the demonstration just for the purposes of time. So essentially the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to add sort of a standard to what I personally prefer to have, what I'm the most comfortable with using, and share it with you guys. There's a lot of cool different build ideas, and these are the ones that have currently worked the best for me, and it's something that I'd like newer players to work towards, or maybe if you've already beaten this game and you want to go at it again, you may want to do it from my point of view. So, without further ado, we're going to start off with my favorite character of the bunch, and that's going to be Hannes. Hannes the Warmaster. I've said many times, people already know about this by now, but it is the quintessential boss killer build, and it's just very good. She does have the highest physical attack. Actually, she is tied with Olberic at having the highest physical attack, but she does, in my eyes, edge Olberic out a little bit more due to the fact that she has access to the Hunter's Like Hold Trap ability, and she's pretty cute. So, looking over at the equipment that I've given her, I give it her all the battle tested stuff. Like I said, this is going to be kind of sort of my own recommendations of stuff to aim for. Unfortunately, this is only accessible past the chapter 4s of each of the characters, but what you can do for sort of a substitute is go for the forbidden weapons, because the forbidden weapon penalties that you have on them actually don't affect the Windhild's battle cry. So yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of damage very early on, and you only need to be the chapter 1s to access the forbidden weapons anyway, so you're pretty much good to go. But yeah, we've gone ahead and gotten all of these. I've already flashed all the locations for each of these weapons. There's so many different weapons in this game, and there's so many different locations to keep track of, so I apologize if I miss a couple, but yeah, this is essentially what you'd want to get. Of course, the Giant's Club and the Memorial Axe will be the only battle-tested weapons that you don't take, mainly because the battle-tested axe works a lot better with the Runelord, which I'll get into very soon, and the Giant's Club has the highest physical attack power out of all of the staff-type weapons, so it's very good. In terms of the shields I've given her the Mick and Max shield. It's one of the best shields overall, because it gives you good defense and great evasion, so really you can just give this to any of your characters. Pick your favorite, go ahead, do whatever you want. Oasis Hat and Primeval Robe just for the additional SP and the defenses, and then Physical and Mighty Belts to make sure she can put out as much damage as possible. You're going to be hitting in the ballpark range of like 90,000 per line if you go with the support skill build that I've been sort of toting around for the past couple of weeks. Been championing this quite a bit. Hannes Judgment Day mode. Physical Prowess, because it is a permanent physical attack and defense buff, and then Fortitude, because once you're at low HP, and if you're at 1 HP, you're going to hit 90,000 damage per hit, with of course the exception of the staff hit because it's substantially weaker. BP Eater is my favorite support skill right now, just because the amount of damage that you can do per boost is incredible, and honestly, you're going to be seeing this on basically every offense-based character that I'm using, so yeah, definitely keep this one around. And then there is Surpassing Power, which is pretty obvious. You want to go over the damage cap, and you want to see those big numbers. Now, moving on, we're going to look at the fan-favorite character, Tressa. Tressa the Runelord. I've already made 2 videos about her, but I'll quickly go over this. In my mind, Tressa is the perfect match for the Runelord, because the 2 weapons that the Runelord gives you are ones that she doesn't already have. This means that she can take advantage of more weapons, and with more weapons means more elemental increase bonuses, so that's exactly what we're doing here. Not to mention that you can have the added utility of the Transfer Rune, which means you can transfer sidestep buffs for invincibility to physical attacks, completely mitigating all the damage from bosses like Windhild. It's very good. The equipment in question, like I mentioned, the battle-tested axe is nice because it has 2 bonuses built into 1 weapon, and then there's going to be the Herald Sword for more fire damage, the Trade Wind Spear for wind, and the Primeval Bow of Storms for even more wind damage. You'll actually find that if you try using Runelord and elemental bonuses for every character, the maximum that you can do is 4 elements per character, because that's the way that the weapons were distributed. But the thing about Tressa is that she edges them out just slightly due to the fact that she has additional wind increase increases, which is just more impactful than elemental attack, so you definitely want to go for that. Next up is going to be just more offense. Give her the adamantine hat and sorcerer's robe. Give whatever shield you want. More defense does not matter. Evasion actually doesn't matter at all if you're playing as Tressa, because you have the sidestep, which is guaranteed evasion. And then 2 elemental augmenters. You want to max it out as best you can, and this is the way to do it. For the skill build, this is pretty much like a magical version of Haneth Judgment Day mode, where we're going to be going for Surpassing Power, BP Eater, and then the buff, the permanent physical or elemental attack buff. Elemental in this case. Now, unfortunately, you don't enjoy the effects of the fortification or the fortitude, where you have lower HP for more damage, because it's all elemental damage. So instead, you will use elemental aid. It's a very costly thing to have, but thankfully, the way that it works is that it completely affects your elemental attacks. So while your runes take twice as much SP to apply to yourself, it's going to do a lot more, and that's what makes it worth it. Not to mention that if you're playing with Balagar's Blade, the 100 SP cost does not make that much of a difference, since you can just easily heal it all back with the Inspiriting Plum Medium, which are very easy to come by. Next up on our list is going to be Therion. This is one of my favorite characters in the game, and this is like my favorite job combination, because for once it's not a secret job. It is a thief and cleric combination, and it works so well on Therion, and I found a way to make it work. I'll probably make a video if people want to see more about this, but yeah, the reason why Therion is so good is because he's very useful for bosses and for training. If you're grinding, you can have longer excursions due to the fact that you can use share SP and heals, so that's exactly what I've tried to do here. The equipment in question is going to be the Forbidden Blade and Forbidden Dagger. You're not going to be attacking that much, and any of the penalties that you do get, or at least the only one that matters, is going to be the Dagger one anyway. But the thing is, though, you want more damage for more SP stealing, and that's exactly what we've done here. Meteorite Rod, I've given that to him for more evasion, and the Forbidden Blade is really good because we're barely going to attack with the sword, and we get more speed as a result. More speed means getting to go earlier in the turn. Try to go for as much SP as you can. I've also given him more evasion to capitalize on his already high evasion stats, and then I've given him Stimulating Necklace and Bracelets. If you want, you can have 2 necklaces if that floats your boat, to give you even more SP. Because of the way that share SP works, you're going to do a percentage based on how much he already has, so you're easily going to be able to top yourself up with Steal SP with the weapons and the skills that we're using, and then you'll be able to share that with the rest of your party, meaning you can have longer trips. It's just very good. Next up is the equip support skills. Pretty obvious why you would have these. BP Eater just boosts your damage even further, so the more damage you can do with the Steel SP, the more you're going to get back, and the more you can share, and you just kind of keep that train going. And then the SP Saver is nice because, again, like, you just have to make sure that you constantly have it available. Remember, if you have 0 SP, you can't do the Steal, so you need to make sure you always have it. And then Saving Grace is one of the most useful skills overall. I would highly recommend having the Saving Grace passive ability on all your support type units, because it overheals them, meaning that the chances of them dying in a single turn is a lot less likely. And remember, you can't support your team if you're already dead. And then finally there's the Boost Start, which is an insanely good skill to have, because with boosts meaning that you have more BP to work with, and you kind of just shape the game according to that, and that's exactly what I want. Is the more options you have, the better. Fourth in line is going to be Cyrus the Sorcerer. This is a pretty easy build to explain. I mean, you just want to capitalize on his impressive elemental attack stat. And the equipment that we're using, we're going to be using the Bishop Staff. The reason why I like the Bishop Staff so much is because if you're using the Luke's ability, you're going to do even more damage. But if you don't plan on using that particular spell, what you can do is use the Battle-Tested Staff. However, I would kind of recommend making these interchangeable with one another, because if you're fighting against the post-game boss, the light element is a lot more useful overall. It's just because that light damage just means a lot, and that's the weakness of that particular boss. Bow does not matter whatever. Like, you can make it a makeshift bow for all I care. It's going to be absolutely fine. And then there's going to be the shield. Again, evasion doesn't matter too much since we're going to be dealing with spellcasters most of the time. Adamantine hat, Sorcerer's Robe, just like with Tressa, and Elemental Augmentor. I've also given him the Dragon Scarf because he does tend to be mana starves most of the time, because we've given him Elemental Aid for more damage, so you want to make sure that you can kind of help mitigate that in any way that you can. The actual support skills in question are going to be Elemental Edge for obvious reasons, Surpassing Power to make sure we can hit as many times as we can per hit, Elemental Aid for the additional increase, and BP Eater. This is basically your cut and dry sorcerer build, and honestly I wouldn't change anything about it. Next up to bat is Primrose, and the funny thing about Primrose is that she actually could arguably be considered a better sorcerer than Cyrus, but I've decided to kind of just go a little bit differently and go for the Scholar. The reason why I would say that she'd be such a good sorcerer is because she has such high speed and good elemental attack, not to mention that she has access to daggers, meaning she could access the Adamantine Dagger to do more damage with the Tenebrae spell. But Scholar works really nicely for her, and the playstyle that I have is actually a little bit more inclined to support being a dancer and all. So before I get into that, I just want to look at her equipment. The first thing is going to be Heathcote's Dagger to increase the fire damage, and then the Absolute Zero Staff to increase ice damage. This is because the Scholar comes with 2-hit spells for fire and ice, so obviously you want to get as much of that as we can. And then we want to give her whatever elemental attack. I've given her Dragon Scale armor because I don't have another sorcerer robe, but if you want, that's something you can totally go for. And again, you could give her another elemental augmentor since we do have 3 in total. But otherwise though, you want to make sure that you can capitalize on her impressive speed, because the whole point, for me anyway, to make her a sorcerer is to work away at the weaknesses of your enemy. The faster and sooner you can break the enemy guard, the sooner you can have Hanitz or Tressa or your Runelord or Warmaster to fully boost and then one-shot the boss and then move on with your life. So, for the support skills in question, it's going to be Show Goes On. This is almost mandatory for most support units anyway, and it's no exception with Primrose. She does have access to Dancer abilities, and if you want, you can even forgo the Physical Prowess or Elemental Edge passives just so that she can kind of do the increase herself. And then we have BP Eater. It works really nicely. If you want, you could also try to use Stronger Strikes because you were aiming for weak points, but even so, she does a great amount of damage, again, because she's the second highest elemental attack stat in the game, so we could totally make good use of that. And then Boost Start is always nice to have because the more turns you have, the more attacks you can use, the more damage you can have, the better. And also, because of the way that it works with the Show Goes On, by boosting your dances, you can make it last even longer. And with 2 additional ones at the with an additional BP at the beginning, you will be able to have that be applied to 2 characters. And of course, Elemental Edge for the very obvious reasons. You'll notice that this kind of skill is going to be around for a lot of people. Okay, so here is Ophilia, and Ophilia the Merchant, nonetheless. Merchant is one of the most useful classes in the game, and the fact that she's a cleric is also good because you're able to heal people while also throwing BP at them. Normally, I don't like having a bunch of support skills on a single character. I'd rather spread it out, but Ophilia is going to be my exception to this rule. So the thing about Ophilia, there's not really much I can say. Like, her damage, like, whatever, right? I mean, you're not going to be attacking the majority of the time. If you want, you could give her something along the lines of like a Platinum Spear or Soul Glaive, if that's what you want to do for more elemental attack. But again, most of the time, I'm just going to be doing things like Reflective Veils. I'm going to do things like BP Donates, because that is what you would want the Merchant class for. And of course, you want to kind of give her as much defense and evasion as you can, since that really helps. I've given her the Princess's Coat to make sure that she can heal more. This is really good because in tandem with Saving Grace, the higher HP you have before the heal, the more you're going to overheal, resulting in more defense for you. So that's really useful to have. And of course, you want to give her some form of defense. If you want, you can give her more SP. She is already a really high base SP as it is. I believe the highest base SP out of all the characters, so you don't really need to go too crazy with the what's it called? The one to increase your SP. And then you also have the Articulate Stone, just in case you get silenced. All the characters are useless if they get silenced, but it would just be nice if she wasn't the one that had to suffer for it. So that's exactly what I've done here. For the support skills that I've given her, pretty simple stuff. I've given her Boost Start to make sure that she can donate as much BP at the beginning as she can, or you can donate one additional BP per turn for the first 2 turns, and that's gonna be really good because that means that, like, you know, you can give a total of 3 BP to one character so they can go for their divine skills as soon as possible. Saving Grace, like I mentioned earlier, and Elemental Edge. Patience is a really fun skill to work with, and honestly, it's kind of what makes makes the game so thrilling for me. You roll the dice, and if you get patient, that's one free BP you can give to another character, and honestly, I like playing around with that because you just give yourself more options. So that's exactly what it is with Ophilia. It's very utility heavy, and I wouldn't have it any other way for a cleric character. Next up is Alfyn. Alfyn, this is actually a really fun one that I had experimenting with, which is funny because I rarely use this guy, but I've made him a dancer. I've made him a dancer because the thing about Alfyn, he has so much utility by virtue of being an apothecary. Apothecaries have just such good safety measures put in place, and that's exactly what I want to do here. The Dancer gives you optimal speed, and that's something that I've wanted to sort of apply to Alfyn over here. So looking over at the equipment, you'll see that again, just like with Ophilia, like who really cares about the damage at this point? But I've given him the Viper Dagger because it gives him more speed. And the Forbidden Axe also could have technically given more speed too, but if you want, you can give him maybe a stronger axe if you can find one, like battle-tested if you have another battle-tested axe running around. But for the most part though, you do want to capitalize on more speed so that he's much quicker to give you things like Rehabilitate, which makes you invincible to status ailments. So in terms of this, it's just going to be more speed again, Sprightly Necklace, and the Stimulating Necklace. Feel free to give whatever defenses you can. He already has pretty high HP, the highest base HP out of all the characters, so really it's all up to you what you want to do with it. For the support skills though, this was a lot of fun because again, because he is a apothecary, the Rehabilitate works with the show goes on because it gives you one additional turn of invincibility to poison, which is a very, very deadly trick for the final boss. SP Saver is pretty self-explanatory why you want to do this, and Boost Start. Boost Start is so good because after the first turn, you're going to have enough BP for a Doter's Charity, or you can have a merchant donate 1 BP, or use a single pomegranate, and then you can have the Doter's Charity for him. It's just such a very powerful divine skill because you can use Revitalizing Jam to give your entire party full HP, full SP, and full BP, and you're really good to go, and you're going to be safe the majority of the time. The majority of your healing isn't going to come from your cleric, it's going to come from Alfyn. Next up is going to be the Saving Grace. Again, you want to overheal. I feel like all support should have Saving Grace, just because, you can't heal anyone, you can't save anyone if you're dead, so that's exactly what we want to do here. And last but certainly not least is Olberic. Olberic the Warrior Apothecary, and you can see he is the Fire Emblem weapon triangle of sword, spear, and axe. This is pretty much the exact same story as Alfyn, but you want to make sure you have 2 sources of Doter's Charity, because it is just that good. So looking over at his equipment, again, really, you just give him whatever weapons that you see fit. The reason why I like Apothecary on Olberic so much is because you get so much HP, not to mention that if you have the Rehabilitate skill, you can use it on yourself. So if you find yourself doing a challenge duel with a townsfolk, then if they do something like blinds or poison you, you'll be rendered invincible, and it's easy just to tough out most of the fights this way. And yeah, that's exactly what I've tried to do here. Feel free to also give them some battle tested if you have them going around, so like you could theoretically farm with them. If you want, give Olberic the battle tested weapons first so that he can fight against the people that give them to you. And yeah, that's exactly what I've tried to do. And then of course, more defense is always a good thing. Empowering Necklace for even more HP, bringing it to sky-high levels. And feel free to give this one like a Scarf to give yourself more HP recovery, things like that. For the skills, it's pretty cut and dry what you want to do for the skills. It's just Saving Grace, Boost Start, Physical Prowess, and Patience. Patience I like to have, because let's just say you're in, your entire party's been poisoned somehow, so he heals one person, and then let's say Alfyn heals the other person. There's one more person, so the Patience kicks in, and you can do one more thing. Or you can use another item for the Doter's Charity, so that you can just have that extra advantage. It's just very, very good to have overall, and honestly, it's what I like to have. I like to have the mix between the very, very powerful characters and the characters that form the bedrock for your success. So yeah, that basically about does it for the builds that I use for post-game. It's just so many different options that are available. Obviously, everyone does play different from one another, but on a personal level, this has worked very, very well for me, and it's what I've used to beat the post-game boss very reliably, and that's what I like to do. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed these. Hopefully you guys kind of took some notes for these ones. If you'd like, we could do the videos for the characters that have not had videos yet. I'm totally down to do that. If you guys want, we could just, say that down in the comments down below, and I will see what I can do about that in the coming days. Until then, thank you very, very much for listening to this, and as usual, I will see you in the next video. Hope to see you soon. Take care, everyone.